Hello, everyone. Welcome to interview number 3 of Mindblock Week. In case you guys are new, this is a series of interviews we are doing here at OSU University, which is this improvement focused OSU hub, where our goal is to basically bridge that gap between top players and the general community. So, yeah, in keeping with that theme, this week we're doing a series of interviews trying to dive deep into the topic of Mindblock. This is the third interview of that series, and joining me today is Xilver. Hello, Xilver.
You know
Good.
what I just thought?
What happened?
The fact that you named it OSU University and it's like an actual university that exists. So basically, you just screwed up the actual university students' search results when you made that site.
Um, there are even multiple universities with the name OSU. Anyway,
Yeah, so there's more
it's
students that are now confused. Like, wait, what is this?
um. Well,
Anyways, yeah,
then
hello.
that way
Hi.
more people will find OSU University then by accident, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
discover the game.
Tactics. Good strats.
Um, okay, so yeah, just in case anyone is maybe not familiar with who you are, Silver,
Advertising. Yep. Yep.
could you give a brief introduction as to who you are as a player and what people probably know you as?
Uh, I am a player. I started playing in 2013-ish. Um, what do people know me as? Probably as the guy who plays too much nowadays.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, I know
but
you mentioned you had another interview with Fingerfi, and I know you mentioned that you have like the most total hits in the game and like highest
uh,
level. Is that still true?
should be.
Oh,
I
Um,
mean, I can't really play that much anymore because I have like tendon inflammation in my left hand. But I'm pretty
no.
sure I'm pretty sure I should still be. I mean, I'm not like I haven't actively tried for these like accomplishments, air quotes.
Right.
Like it just happened, you know. So
Okay, but yeah, I think I want to get your perspective on Mindblock in particular. You have, I think, this mentality towards the game, or you definitely think a lot about the game, um, evident by some other interviews that you've done and some YouTube videos that you've made as well. Um, so yeah, just to get started, could you give a sort of, I guess, your own understanding of what Mindblock is?
okay. Well, first thing, I think the word mind block is kind of misleading because it's supposed to, like, when you say mind block, it's like your brain is like at fault here, right? But most of the time, mind blocks are like mechanical mistakes. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So,
right.
so my definition is like when your muscle memory isn't matched up with what you're supposed to do on a map, right? Like, let's say there's a jump pattern of a triangle, and there's note one, two, and three, and you hit note two, maybe slightly two up, and then your body kind of remembers to hit it slightly two up, and like you consistently miss that note, right?
Right.
So it's, I wouldn't really say it's like using the term mind is kind of misleading. It's really just like a misalignment of muscle memory most of the time, in my opinion.
So in that sense, it's like your muscle memory kind of misremembers the pattern.
Not necessarily. I think you just kind of play a pattern a certain way, and then let's say you miss, and then for some reason you just repeat the same miss over and over again.
So that there's this sort of like cycle of like you miss once and then you don't really fix it or like figure out how to fix it, and then you just kind of keep making that same mistake.
Yeah,
Um,
it's basically building bad muscle memory. Not like, how do I say it? Not intentionally. It just happens. Like it's not. You know what I mean? Like
right.
sometimes it just happens to everyone. So,
Uh, And do you think there are like certain ways that you can, I guess, fix or reverse mind block?
oh, you can fix every mind block, like
Oh,
every single one,
can you take us through
without
that?
exception. Okay, it's not like a secret or whatever, but it's really just look at how you miss and force yourself to fix the muscle memory, right? So, like when I say you can fix every mind block without exception, I really mean it because it's really most of the time just mechanical mistakes. So let's say you're offsetting a little bit more on one note. Watch your replay, see where you are. Like let's say I over aimed it a bit to like the right, to the top right. So when I hit a jump, if I just make sure to move slightly less with my cursor, I should be able to hit it
Right.
in like theoretically, right? So eventually what you do is you keep making that motion where like you reduce your movement a little bit to compensate for that mind block to make sure you hit it. And when you do it enough times, it essentially rebuilds your muscle memory and you're able to do it without thinking.
Oh, okay. Actually, real quick, since I know you've been mentioning the term muscle memory, but in case people are maybe a little confused as to like what you mean by that, could you explain what?
Oh, well, actually, well, the term muscle memory is also kind of misleading because your muscles don't have memory. It's really your brain, right? Um, but I guess like your brain is kind of telling you to go the wrong way. So essentially, you just need to force yourself to not go the way that you think you should be going, right? Like I just said, like if you over aim, like make sure you move slightly less, and you should be able to hover over a certain note or whatever. Um,
So then maybe it is actually mind block after all.
well, that depends on whether you think it comes from the brain or muscles, right? It's like think about it, your brain is giving orders to your muscles and your muscles execute a certain action,
Oh,
but your brain
true.
isn't telling you don't hey, miss on note 2. He's not telling you that, right? Your muscles just aren't responding properly, you know? Like I wouldn't think that your brain would tell you, "Hey, miss on that note every time you play a map." At least I don't I
Right.
don't think it's supposed to do that. Yeah.
So I think the understanding so far is that mind block is basically a result of like continuing to make the same mistake without stopping to fix it. And when so
Sort of. Like when you play something over and over again, you rebuild muscle memory.
right.
So essentially, if you make a mistake over and over and over again, that kind of just like builds into how you're supposed to play a map, and it rebuilds like bad muscle memory. So that's to me what mind blocks are in essence. But
Do you have
uh,
any
it
like
it goes a little further than that. Sorry, keep going.
oh, no. Do you have any like I guess personal experiences with like a map that you were really mind blocked on, and then like sort of take us through in more detail like how like I guess like step by step what you did to
Oh,
overcome that?
okay, well, there's the cheap way and there's the not cheap way. Which way you want me to go over?
Cheap way first, and then the not cheap way.
Okay, so the cheap way is stuff like changing your skin or like flipping your monitor or whatever, or like I don't know, like changing your area, whatever like people do nowadays, like gamma or whatever. I think that's kind of cheap because you're not really solving the problem, you're just escaping from it. So
Oh,
you're kind of
okay.
just like hoping to do something that ends up that might end up working. You're not really sure. You're just kind
Right.
of like, how do I say it? It's like you're relying on chance essentially to do it, which I don't know. To me, like an expert should be agile in his movement, right? He shouldn't be like hesitant or unconfident. So whenever you do something like flipping your monitor, you're kind of just like relying on quote unquote sight read magic, you know, and I don't personally like that.
I see. Yeah, I think another thing with that is that like once you flip your monitor trying to break the mind block, and then you get mind block like that too, like now what do? Like you have to actually be able to solve your problem because there's
I
only
feel
so
like
many ways to
yeah,
escape it.
I feel like it can like overcomplicate itself to overthinking as well. Like let's say okay, like you're flipping your monitor and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna FC this map like right now, and then you FC like past the part you couldn't hit, and then suddenly you're nervous because you're like, oh wait, I did it, but now I need to not miss, and then your brain just like plays tricks on you and you miss. So I'm like, why overexert that amount of pressure on you when you can just solve the problem and
Yeah.
not do it,
Okay,
you
that's
know?
actually a really good point. I think like like in that regard, I think confidence plays a pretty big role. Like if you know you've solved your mind block, then
Exactly.
you're not really gonna like start getting nervous after hitting that part. Um, but if you are just relying on some random chance to end up hitting it correctly, then once you do end up hitting it, then um you're gonna be like, oh my god, I just got lucky rather than like
Yeah, like that's the
yeah,
thing. I don't like relying on luck because like what expert relies on luck? Like
right.
I don't, like I don't like obviously that's like idealistic, right? But to me at least, I would like to be confident in what I do and not rely on chance to do stuff, you know?
Right. So then that's the cheap sort of way, like sort of
Yeah.
is
I mean, don't get me wrong, people can do whatever works for them, right?
right.
It's just my take on it.
Right. I agree. So then what's the more deliberate, non-cheap way of like
It's the
really
one that
getting
I it's the one that I went over earlier, the one where it comes to seeing how you miss and fixing your problem accordingly, like seeing what you do wrong and working towards fixing it.
okay, do you think going in the editor is a good way to do that?
There's a couple ways. One is watching your replays, which is pretty good, kind of, but the replay viewer is like bad, like really bad. So uh, there's a third-party software that analyzes your misses. You can save your replay, and it shows you like exactly where your cursor was and when you clicked. So
Oh, is it
I think it's yeah, it's like a
misanalyzer?
misanalyzer. Yeah, it's a
Right.
misanalyzer of sorts. It's really helpful actually
Uh
because it essentially like if you understand why you miss, you can solve it.
right.
The problem is like understanding why you miss, not just like um relying on chance or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Wait,
I
I'm kind of repeating myself though. Yeah,
no
keep
no,
going.
you're good. And I think there's another like replay analyzing program that's like in development. Um so it's not
I
completely out yet, but I think
I'm not aware of that,
it's
but
pretty
that sounds
promising.
cool.
Yeah, it's called a rewind. It's like you can actually put in the replay and like there's like a scrub bar at the bottom and there's some analysis tools and
That
things
looks
like that.
cool.
Yeah,
Sure.
later on, I guess if you guys are watching on YouTube, after that program gets released, then I'll put it in the description. But um,
Who's working on it, actually?
someone named Abstract, they're in the server actually.
I have heard of them, I think.
Um,
Well, okay. I'm
yeah,
excited.
but look forward to that. But yeah, so watching your replay. So what do you think about practice difficulties?
Uh, Generally, I don't like to use them because you kind of go in a different mentality when you play a part of the map versus playing the whole map itself, in my opinion. Like, you're not really in the same headspace when you play, uh, like, let's say one hard pattern compared to like the whole map from start to finish.
Right.
That's my experience with it. Sometimes it helps, but I wouldn't do it more than like twice or like three times. Like play a practice difficulty like three times and then like come back to the actual map. Like I'd focus on the full map, unless it's stuff like like unforgiving flashlight where you kind of have to do that, right?
Yeah.
Right. But for the most part, like I would do it like little. I wouldn't do it a lot. I would mainly rely on playing the whole thing.
I want to also mention mods when it comes to Mindblock. Like, do you feel like um I guess like I don't know, do you think Mindblocks sort of carry between multiple mods?
Uh, Not really. I don't think it's exclusive to any mod, if that's what you asked. I'm not sure
Um,
I understand.
well, I guess okay. So this actually comes from a question on the Google form from Smith, who asked, "Is Mindblock affected differently for mods? Can you carry a Mindblock from no mod going into easy, hard rock, or flashlight?"
Maybe depends how bad it is. Like, let's say you mind block something on no mod and then you play it easy. Well, if the circle is bigger and your cursor can still reach it with easy, then maybe it won't bother you as much. Uh, and on the contrary, like if hard rock might make it worse because the circles are smaller, but thankfully, like your screen gets flipped, so it kind of like negates itself. It depends. Um, it's really just like, well, it's applicable to anything, like any mod combination. So I don't think, like, even if it does apply to like multiple mods, you still fix it the same way, right?
Right, right, right. Makes sense. Um, and I think okay, so I'm probably just gonna try going through a couple of these questions from the forum so that we can um
Go for it.
work our way through them. Okay, so there's this anonymous question that came in that says, "How do you grind for a score and not get mind blocked?" So I guess
How do you grind for a score? I
specifically
mean,
for
that's
like
kind of,
when you're really grinding for a score, like are there any
I mean,
preventative measures?
okay, so I feel like I guess I kind of should touch on that. People like are really scared of getting mind blocked, I feel like. So much so that they like only play a map twice and then just move on. And I feel like that's so self-defeating. I think grinding is a necessary skill to have. And like I, I feel like if you're not getting mind blocked, you're doing it wrong, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you only learn so much playing a map twice, I think.
Right.
So even if you do get mind blocked, like okay, you can just fix it. I'd rather here's the thing. I'd rather know a map inside out and maybe be slightly mind blocked on one pattern than play a map like twice and be really unconfident on it.
Yeah. And
Because I know how I can fix it, and I just do that, and it's it's a good strategy for tournaments. I feel like because a lot of people say like, oh, play tournament maps only like once or twice, but like if you're not good at that map, don't only play it once or twice. Like keep practicing, like improve your scores and stuff. You know?
yeah, I definitely agree. I think like being able to like knowing how to reverse mind block in a sense, like we've been talking about, is especially important for tournament play because yeah, I think well, I don't know. Partly maybe just because people are lazy when they practice map pools like me, but um I think people sort of uh I guess hinder themselves by not practicing a map pool as much as they could, just because they're scared of mind block, like you mentioned.
Yeah. That will I cannot speak. That also ties up to just normal play, playing a map like once or twice. I don't know, like from my experience, I've never gotten like significantly better only playing a map once or twice. Like back when I was like my first 2 years of playing the game, I was playing a map like 300 times a day. And yeah, I was getting mind blocked, but it was just, like funnily enough the time where I improved the most, actually.
Right.
So I think grinding is actually just like part of the process. Like you shouldn't avoid it. Like the opposite actually. You need to like encourage yourself to grind it. And if you get mind blocked, then okay, you can fix it. Just make sure you're aware why you were missing and use like nowadays it's really easy because there's so many resources to help you with it, but just like
Right.
know how to fix it.
That's a good
And
point, actually.
yeah, eventually you'll just become like my take, right? I get confident playing a map over time, right? Some people only, I know they like to rely on sight read, like first try, like for example, right? And that's just like different styles of play, right? Like it works for
Right.
some people, right? It doesn't really work for me. Uh, I kind of learn it over time, and I think you made a video about it, uh, where you said like how Itki would like play a map for 9 hours straight, or not 9 hours straight, like
Oh,
play a map pool for nine
right.
hours straight, and that's kind of how he builds muscle memory. And I've kind of taken the same point of view.
Yeah, I think that point you made about like sort of challenging yourself by um I guess tackling your mind blocks head on is I think that is kind of, or like you mentioned, like how you improve the most. Um because I think being able to resolve a mind block or like undo a mind block, um, it's less about just fixing the mind block and more about like becoming better as a player. Um,
Yeah.
in that sense, it's kind of like I don't
Like,
know.
think about it. Like, let's say you play a map and you get mind blocked on it, and you're just like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna play something else." And then like 2 days later, you come back to that map, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, I can't play this. I'm mind blocked on this. Moving on." Whereas you practice it more and more for 2 days straight, and you fixed your mind block. Like
Right.
it just, I don't know. Like to me, I don't like escaping the problem. I like tackling it head on. So
Yeah. No, I definitely agree, and that's definitely I think how, like I mentioned, how you can really improve at those skills rather than um almost holding yourself back in a way. It's like admitting defeat. Like I guess I just can't play this pattern. I just can't play this map.
yeah, it's like that's not. I don't see any successful people like using that type of mindset. I'm gonna be honest. Like I'm pretty sure most people who are like at a high level of play have some way of dealing with mind blocks.
Yeah. I know a lot of people, at least so far in the previous interviews, have mentioned like different ways of reading to, um, I guess like read the map in a different way so that you can understand the map better and not get mind blocked. But
Was it Bubble Man?
yeah, Bubbleman and GN as well mentioned.
Okay, yeah, I can say stuff about that because that is true to some extent. Uh, man, I wish I could show this because I don't have like a monitor, but let's pretend there's a square, right?
Right.
I remember Jesse, if Jesse 1412, you might remember him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, they made a video, or not a video, a forum post where they were like, okay, so you can read squares in a couple ways. You can read them as like two lines, or you can read them as like individual notes, or you can read them as like triangles or stuff. It's kind of like tricking your brain thinking that it's something else where it's essentially just like taking a pattern of 8 jumps and just like simplifying it to lines of 2 notes, essentially. That's
Right.
how I looked at it.
No, yeah, I
Uh,
definitely agree. I think that's been a common
but it
bit
actually
of
goes
advice.
slightly it actually goes slightly further because you can change the lines in a square, right? Think about it. Instead of reading like the vertical lines, you can read the horizontal lines, and that's different, right?
Oh yeah.
You can do it in like more ways than one. So you can kind of be creative with it, I feel like. But at the same time, I feel like that's also kind of cheap.
Oh really?
But if it works, it works. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't know. Because like you're kind of escaping from trying to read it in like the way you would normally read, right? But that's kind of like it's really delving into like morality, which is not really something that matters at all. So
Right.
yeah.
Um I think what we were mentioning earlier about like mind block actually sort of helping you push yourself to improve at a certain kind of pattern. Um, that actually leads me to this question that came in on the forum, anonymous question that asked, "What is or what are the advantages and disadvantages from getting mind blocked?" It seems like an interesting or strange question
Yeah,
at
I'm
first,
not I'm
but
not sure how to answer that.
I think
I'm not sure how to answer that.
the
That
the
sounds a very vague question.
um train of thought that I was thinking is like if you do get mind blocked and like you tackle it in the right way, it can I guess push you to improve a lot more than like if you
It increases your confidence, yeah, if
right, right.
anything.
Um so
Yeah, I
yeah.
guess that's kind of it. Like I guess you can look at ugh, HDMI. Anyway, you can look at it in two ways, right? One is like, okay, I'm gonna fix it, and the other one is, okay, I can't do this. I'm just gonna go play something else. Uh, Personally, I always go with the first, or I try my best to go with the first method, right? Um,
Right.
Here's another thing though, and I remember Gian touched on it for a little while. Like I didn't listen to the whole interview, but I listened to like around the end of it, and he said something like, when you spend time on a map for a certain amount of time, eventually your brain uh kind of gets used to the stimulus and doesn't focus as hard. And I do think that's true. So I'd say moving to a certain map to kind of like refresh your brain is a good idea. Uh, but make sure you come back to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because there's this like concept I think, which is deep work and shallow work. And usually deep work is when you're putting in like 90% of your focus, like not 90%, like 100% of your focus towards something. And
Right.
that usually lasts around like 90 minutes or so, give or take. Depends on the person. Um, Shallow work is the thing you do that like you know how when let's say you're at school or like you're at work, right? And you're doing classwork or whatever, and you're like pretending to do it when you're just like
Yeah.
half-assing it, everything. It's like stuff that makes you think you're being productive, but you're not giving it your full effort. That's shallow work.
Right.
The key is recognizing what is deep work and what is shallow work, and whenever you recognize that, just do something else to refresh your brain. That's what I found is the most effective.
You mean whenever you feel like you are just in this cycle of shallow work, basically?
Yes. It takes a lot of awareness, right? Like it's not something that's incredibly easy to get started with, but you can get better at it with practice. Here's the thing, like mindsets aren't fixed. Like you can improve ways of thinking with practice. Or like, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that
It's just like physical things. Like it's the same thing towards like mental states, in my opinion.
yeah, I think that that's actually a common sort of trap that a lot of people fall into. Maybe not even just regarding Osu, but
Yeah, it's regarding everything, man.
right.
Osu is everything.
Oh
No, I'm
my
kidding.
god,
But
life
you
lessons
can
from Osu.
apply, dude, you can apply philosophy to pretty much like every aspect of like human life.
Right.
So,
Um yeah, and especially regarding mind block, I think like the way that people approach like the situation or problem when they do get mind block, right? Like you mentioned, it is not something that's fixed. It's not like, oh, like listening to you talk about like two different ways of approaching mind block, where one is that you tackle it, and two is that you just leave the map alone. Um, it's, it's
can I also say something else, by the way, that I
yeah,
forgot?
yeah, sure,
Um, a lot of people look for like advice online or like on videos, but I don't think that's actually a good way to approach it. I feel like the best way is to not watch any videos and figure it out yourself.
right.
Like all of you listening here, leave this call and like figure it out yourself. That's the best way to. No, I'm kidding. But um, the thing is, the reasoning behind that is like you can't really enter someone else's brain and like assess what they look at stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
you only have yourself in the end, so you have like your own way of explaining it to yourself, and like sometimes when you explain something to someone else, he doesn't get it, right?
right.
So
I think
you
that's
don't really need to explain it to other people. You just need to like figure it out yourself and like come up with your own ways. Like I feel like that's how most people who at a high level, like who got to a high level, they didn't really ask anyone. They kind of just like figured a way to do it themselves.
yeah. I think that uh, it sort of applies to the whole like um teaching styles type thing, or I don't remember what it was called, but I saw it a couple of weeks ago. This like hierarchy of like ways to take in information, and then like how much of that information you actually absorb. Like just being told instructions, or like being told how something works, as opposed to um like watching that situation happen versus like actually being in that situation yourself. And being, I guess, basically like the more hands-on you are with a situation, um by far you'll, take in a lot more
Yeah,
and learn a lot more from that.
100%.
So
Like some stuff you just can't explain with words. It's like driving. Like imagine like you're taught theory on driving for like 6 months and then you finally get your hands on the wheel and you can't do anything for the most part, right? That's
right,
because it's not really something you learn from words. You need to just like get a feel for it almost.
right.
That's what I think about it. Like it's less listening to people, more actually doing it yourself. However, I don't think you need to do it fully. Like I think there should be periods where you're thinking about it yourself. Like let's say like I practice something for like 2 hours or whatever, and then I take a break for 2 hours and I kind of think about what I could do better. Because when you're in the middle of something, you're kind of not in a proper headspace to think about solving an issue, is what I found
Oh,
for the most part.
what do you mean by that?
Uh, it's really hard to, it's harder, sorry, to apply solutions when you're in the middle of something versus like if you're looking at it after the fact. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see.
That's why I think breaks are important because you kind of need to distance yourself from something for a little bit to just like mentally evaluate what you did wrong and apply it better next time.
Right. You
Whereas
can't.
if you were constantly doing it, like you wouldn't really have time to stop. Like, okay, where did I screw up? You'd just be consistently doing something, right?
Right. I think
That,
you can't see the bigger picture when you're in the picture yourself.
yeah,
And
it's harder. It's hard, definitely harder to see it. Yeah.
yeah. The thing you were talking about driving. Do you know about that like thought experiment basically called Mary's Room? It's
No,
the
go
one
for
where
it.
basically like you take someone who's like never seen color before, like they live in a black and white room, and they study everything there is to know about color. um so then one day they theoretically they understand the inner workings of color like greater than anyone else, but they've never actually seen it before. And then one day they happen to see the color red, and just from seeing the color, they learn something new that none of the books ever taught them.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. It's called like there's a word for it. It's called qualia, I think.
oh,
Qualia is like a sensation, like seeing a color in your eye or like feeling something on your skin. That's not something that words can explain very well, you know?
right.
I think that's the proper term for it. I think is qualia, right?
Oh,
But
interesting.
that's
Um,
kind of yeah, it's theory can only take you so far.
right, of
Like
course.
if to be completely honest, like you need to be hands-on to learn the most. That's why it goes back to the whole like, oh, playing a map twice thing like isn't really helpful because you get less hands-on time on something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess regarding or I guess this is something that I try to mention often, but it's definitely something that I think about, like especially regarding these interviews, for example, and things like that. Like our goal is not really to give you answers; it's to sort of suggest like ways of going about something, so that you can then go try it for
Can I go
yourself
on
and see what works.
like a mini tangent? I kind of think that kids nowadays, and like when I say kids, I mean like me too, right? I'm not that old,
Right,
right? So they kind of expect to be spoon-fed answers. And that's cool and all, but it doesn't teach them to think on their own. And I
R-
feel like in the long term, that can be harmful
that
because
definitely, if I can add something, is probably the result of the education system structure, in my opinion.
maybe like if you want to go there, like I don't mind, but
No, no,
I
no.
don't
I
think it
mean,
really.
I'm just gonna throw it out there because that's basically you know how you grow up in
That-
school,
yeah, I feel like that's the problem. The problem is expecting answers from other people.
right?
Like you need to figure it out yourself. Like not only are you gonna learn skills for solving problems by doing it yourself, you're gonna be self-sufficient. You're not gonna need anyone to tell you, "Oh, this is how you do stuff," or like whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. And there's that, and also I guess just in general, like the Google era, search engine era
Oh
of
yeah, definitely.
having answers there for you. You don't.
It's so easy to find answers nowadays. I don't blame anyone.
Right, right,
Like it's so easy to just like have an answer for everything, but when you're just like being spoon-fed an answer, you don't take it in as hard as you would learning it by yourself.
right.
I found.
No, no, yeah, for
Um,
sure,
yeah, my take, right? So,
right. And that's another thing. I guess regarding like when you in all of your infinite wisdom and hands-on experience, like tell someone something or like give them a bit of advice that you've learned through your own experience, they sometimes don't fully grasp like what you mean or like the like severity, I guess, of um
Maybe.
yeah, I
Like,
guess your experience.
I don't think you should not help anyone. Like, don't
Right,
get
right.
the wrong idea. Like it's actually the opposite. I actually encourage people to help out because most of the time you're also helping yourself when you help other people, is what I found.
Oh,
Yeah,
what do you mean by that actually?
like it's not a what's the word? It's not a one direction
One way street?
exchange. Yeah, it goes both ways. When you talk when you talk to someone about something else, you kind of like explain it to yourself in the same way. And then not only that, you also get someone else's opinion about something. So really, it just goes both ways. It's a win-win situation, right?
Oh,
Um,
right. So it's basically you're saying that like explaining something to someone else helps you understand it better as well, basically?
yeah.
Right.
There was this thing I watched where someone was like, "Your best teacher is probably someone that's slightly ahead of you in skill, but not someone that's like a full-fledged expert, right?
Right.
Because when you're an expert, you're like kind of detached from the whole practice mentality or from like the whole being a student mentality. Whereas
Right.
when you have someone that's just slightly ever so ahead of you, they know what you're going through and
Yeah.
they're able to like explain it in simpler terms.
Right.
Is essentially what the point is. But yeah, I feel like we're getting sidetracked. I don't know.
No, no. I
But
think
that's
you're good. Um
okay.
yeah, because I think that the concepts do apply. I think I mean if we want to touch back on mind block for a little bit, I think it's something that like you have to approach in a certain way. I mean the whole reason we started talking about all that stuff, right, was like you have to I guess experience for
The
yourself,
best way
right?
to solve it is doing it yourself. Maybe listen to someone else for a direction,
Right.
but ultimately rely on yourself more than you rely on other people, is what I think personally.
Right. I think I don't know. There's another tangent we can go on about I guess just the whole idea of like self help black hole, is it called or whatever? Um,
I'm not sure
I'm
I
not
know
sure if
that
you
one.
know what I'm talking about. Um,
Maybe. You're the psychology student.
oh,
I'm just a dude.
okay. um, but yeah, but basically, it's like if you keep seeking advice and like different perspectives before ever actually taking any action yourself, then you're just gonna end up spending all of your time doing that, right? So,
Yep.
um, yeah. But point is, I guess, with mind block, I don't
Take
know,
take advice from other people, but don't take it as gospel.
right,
Take your own advice as like the best way forward.
right, and that I guess even related to Osu, I think that's something that a lot of people fall victim of without really knowing. Like, oh, this player that I really look up to plays in XYZ way, so that must be the way, right?
Oh yeah, that's like not no, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Like you need to have like it goes beyond that. You need to have like the same height, you need to have the same hand structure, you need to have like the same table
Upbringing,
height. Not I don't know if it's like even upbringing, but it's just like so many other variables need to be in sync for that to actually be accurate. It's just not worth it
right,
because there's disadvantages and advantages to everything. It balances out like every time. Like
right,
no matter who you are or what you do, right? So
yeah,
you're better off just like figuring out your own weaknesses and strengths rather than trying to copy someone else's weaknesses and strengths.
yeah. Usually, what the way I like to describe it is like you should look at what other people do for inspiration to see what things are out there, because it it sometimes is hard. It might take you like 3 years or something to think of a certain idea of way of doing something. Whereas like if you were to see someone else do it, then you might not even copy that exactly, but it might give you an idea of something else that you can try, right? So I think
Yeah.
just learning what's out there is very valuable. Um, but
You know how when Shige was playing like in 2013, like everyone copied his grip where they like put their pinky on like the
yeah,
tablet or
yeah,
whatever. I never like that was never comfortable for me. Like I know that's a very like Asian type of holding a pencil. And that's
oh
not
really?
racist. It's just like how they're taught,
Right,
right? I think that's how they teach them. But I don't know, it like never worked for me. It works for some people, right? I don't blame them, but it's like if it doesn't work for you, don't force it,
right.
is
You
my opinion.
can't fit a square peg in a round hole.
Information overload. Yeah, that's also true. That's actually true because nowadays there's so many videos about like improvement that like you know how like on YouTube, right? You get like recommended one video and then another video and one more and you're like
Oh my god, yeah. YouTube black hole.
it's like an yeah, it's an endless loop of just like so much information. And frankly, I don't think humans were like built to process that amount of information. I'm serious. Like it just becomes like a giant fog and you're not really able to take in everything. That's why I think it's a good idea to sometimes like disconnect and think think for yourself
Oh yeah, think real thoughts
for some time. Yeah.
instead of
But yeah,
just processing information all the time.
you have to be brain dead. I don't like that mentality. Oh, just turn your brain off because like it's such a gross oversimplification of a concept. Like it kind of preaches the idea that don't think about anything and it's no, that's stupid,
I think
right?
that's the
Like
opposite of what we've been saying.
sorry, what?
I think that's like the opposite of what we've been saying, more or less.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, like I don't know if it's sarcasm, I don't know if it's like memes that I don't understand, but like that's not I don't know. I don't see it's not that complicated, but like I think people take it to extremes, right? Like there's two extremes. One extreme is like not thinking at all. Just like zero brain activity, right? Like
Right, which
actual
works for some
vegetable.
people, I
I know,
guess.
I'm kidding,
Okay.
right? But the other extreme is like overthinking about everything, which also is like not ideal, right? I think
Right.
there's a balance of sorts that you need to reach, right?
Yeah, I agree. Like you have to think enough to know what to do, but you also have to do the thing that you think, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's all about balance, I feel like.
right,
Don't like when you be like, "Oh, I the best way to play Osu is brain dead." That's not true. Okay? Like sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's also helpful to think differently about stuff. You need to find a balance. That's the in my opinion, that's the best way to like approach really anything, right? Is with a sense of balance. Balance.
right.
I cannot speak.
um. Okay, so I think with all because okay, I'm actually very glad that we ended up talking about that because, um, getting like different like sides of the story in terms of like approaching well I guess in this case specifically mind block but really anything um
Did you get a different approach from someone else actually?
well
Or was it just like
I mean as far as 'cause I think in the first two interviews we did talk a lot more about like applicable like ways of reading
oh,
and like changing your skin and things
you
like
want me
that.
to actually do that? I don't
No,
mind.
no, no, no.
Like
I mean, like, I guess, like, to those people who have been listening to all the interviews, at some point, it's like you just listen to the same thing four times, right? So, um, and like
okay.
in all four interviews, so it's good that we talked about that side of the story because I think it's really important, right? And a lot of people sometimes look over that aspect of playing
Yeah.
slash improving. So,
I mean, if you want me to be more like how do I say it? What's the word, dude? I'm so like okay, I don't have the word, but like oh, pedantic. That's the word.
oh,
If you want to be more pedantic about like ways of reading, I can do that. But yeah, I mean, if you said that
um,
uh
I,
Bubble and GN did the same thing earlier,
I
then
mean, you
it's
did
up.
sort of touch on it as well, I
Yeah,
think, and give
I
your
did kind
own
of go over it.
perspective.
But yeah.
I think now might be a good time to start taking viewer questions. Um, those of you who yeah, want to toss in your questions. So if you're listening in the Discord server, there's a text thread called live chat. It's attached to the general channel. And in there, you can ask your questions if you have anything you want to ask. And what we'll do is if you see a question that you would also want asked, if you could react to it with a thumbs up emoji, that way we can keep track of all of them. But just, I guess, while questions come in, just to sort of summarize what has been discussed so far, Silver, if you could give a brief sort of not necessarily overview, but like key takeaways, so to speak.
Oh yeah. Actually, did you want to go over more of these Google Doc questions, or
Uh,
like have we gone over enough? We could go over more if
we
you're like
yeah, we can take
just
over.
on time. It depends. I don't know.
Uh, no, we can take some more from that doc. On Friday is going to be more Q&A, right? Like this Q&A panel. So,
Okay.
yeah, there's going to
It
be more
depends.
opportunities to.
Depends on what you want to do. Like, if there's anything that you felt like, I'm not talking to you specifically. I'm talking to everyone, right? Like, if there's anything you felt I didn't cover, like this is the time to ask, right?
Right. But
But yeah, go for it.
yeah, and I mean, also if like I don't have to pick the questions either, right? If you see a question in live chat that you just want to answer, then
Oh,
go for
right.
it.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Sure. Sure. Hmm. Where are the other 14 Zilvers and what'd you do to them? They're prototypes. They're in the scrapyard behind my house.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they were beta versions. They all suck.
A couple people have, yeah, people have mentioned like different skin elements and things like that, but specifically cursors is I think something that I don't know. Do you have any opinion on cursor color slash shape slash size trail?
Yeah, I actually made a video like about that,
Oh yeah,
discussing
I mentioned
discussing how color can affect the feeling of a cursor.
right. I actually talked
Um,
about that with Bubbleman. We mentioned your video and talked about that concept
really,
a
I
bit.
felt like I thought people would call me crazy for making
No,
that video
no,
because I've never seen anyone like talk about that, and I felt like I'm just like too autistic for everyone. But I'm glad people like resonated, or not resonated, but like agreed with
right.
me at least to a certain way. Anyway, yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Question from the live chat. Okay, this is from Walavoce, who asked, "How much time do you usually spend when you fix a particular mind block? Do you have like a sort of guideline, I guess, like amount of
Hmm.
time that it usually takes, or is it, I don't know, random?"
Honestly, like most of like scores, like good scores I go to take more than a day to get. Like they take like a week or more actually. Like depends, right? So I don't think it actually matters how much time a day you spend because you can just spend more time another day. You know what I mean?
Right. The
Um
map will always be there for you, is what I like to say.
exactly. So like there's that one score I did on some K-pop song. I don't know, but it was like a stream, space stream app, right? And I was like kind of mind blocked on a certain direction in a stream. Um, I remember that score taking me like about a week of just like going over it again and again and trying to fix it little by little. And like eventually I got it after like a week, right?
Oh,
So the the main takeaway is like don't expect to do it in a day. Like feel free to stretch it out because like ideally I think you don't need to play more than 4 hours a day. Even 4 hours a day is a bit excessive, I think. um so it really doesn't matter. I think 90 minutes is probably like the sweet spot, you know what I mean?
yeah.
um but whatever time you don't spend today you can always spend it tomorrow and you'll have like a fresher attitude and like you have sleep over something, and
Right.
you know
Because
that's what I think about it. Like the time doesn't matter because you can always stretch it out to more days.
right. And that's sort of a similar idea to like, cramming for a test as opposed to
Yeah.
dividing your studies. I think one thing is like for like really long play sessions that I usually tell people is like you sort of start to get diminishing returns anyway. Like in those extra hours that you spent, like let's say you did a 4 hour session, you'd rather do like 2 hours now and then get some rest and then do another 2 hours to sort of.
That's also what I meant by deep work versus shallow work. Usually 4 hours is like the threshold for most people when it comes to deep work, right?
Oh, right, right.
And after the fourth hour, they like even if they don't know it, they're in a state of like their brain is just like
Mush.
wore out,
Yeah.
right? Like they're not able to like most people are like that, right? Like almost everyone, if not literally everyone, right? So
Right.
don't push your luck. It's not necessary. Do other stuff with your day, you know?
Um, do you have any actually, so you mentioned like, you can spread out your practice, right? Especially for fixing mind blocks. Um, but I guess do you really see a difference between that and like just taking a break from the map for like a couple days to try to forget the patterns?
I don't like doing that personally because that means unlearning all the stuff that were beneficial to you as well.
Right.
Like, yeah, you might forget the mind block, but you might also forget how to stream a certain BPM, for example. Or you might forget how to like aim a certain pattern that you aimed well, right? Like it goes both ways, in my opinion. But sometimes it works. It depends. Like as long as you keep it in the back of your mind and just like go at it like for a little bit, it's probably okay, is what I think.
Okay, someone mentioned okay, so actually I'll take this question from Sako who asked like this is not really related to mind block, but do you have tips on reading rhythm changes?
Uh,
And
Tips on is there anything in particular? Because I feel like
oh,
rhythm changes is kind of like a big term.
they said I tend to mess up on 1-3 patterns unless I memorize where they are.
Uh, when you mean mess up, do you mean like not understand their one third?
Um,
Yeah, I'm asking the
right,
UI. Don't
right.
like usually like memory isn't a bad thing. In fact, like I use memory a lot, right?
Right,
So I don't think memorizing stuff is like a bad idea. I think it's like if memory works for you, I actually encourage it. Um, Not rhythm, the speed and tapping faster or tapping slower. The whole idea about that is if you tap faster, you just need to force yourself to tap slower. Like I touched on it like on the one interview I did where it's like you can force yourself to tap slower and it'll round up to a 300, right? That's why like
right,
Ack has less of a rhythm aspect to it. It has more of like a mechanical aspect to it. You know what I mean? Like you're good at Ack, you know this, right?
right,
Like you're able to adjust your fingers, like you can slow them down or speed them up, like to whatever you need. You know?
right. And there are ways to predict the rhythm. Obviously, I
Yeah,
think I think music is quite repetitive in that regard. But
mapping is also very repetitive, especially now.
right,
So
right.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, there's definitely some memorization involved. If you tend to like always tap early on one specific pattern, then just intentionally hit later than you think you need to.
yeah, intentionally hit later. It's the same thing applied to mind blocks with aim, just with tapping.
Right, accuracy mind block. You well,
Oh yeah,
not really mind block, but
you said go over an example of a mind block, right?
right,
So I remember when I did the Ice Angel play in 2015, the last curve of the stream was something I didn't go too fast on. So on one, like the stream before the reverse sliders, I don't know, like it's somewhere in there. But basically, I was aiming it too slow, and I just forced myself to aim a little faster, and it worked. You know,
right.
that's kind of like that's the way you should approach it, I think, right? If you want a particular example.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. I think the difference between like fixing a sort of like quote unquote accuracy mind block versus a mind block is that like when you hit an entire pattern early, like you can look down at the graph at the bottom and really
Exactly. You
see
can also do the
visually.
same thing with aim. It's the same thing with aim. It's the exact same thing with aim.
Right, but I think the only hard part is that like you you do have to watch your replay usually to really get
That's
instant
true.
feedback.
But I prefer watching my replay than going in blind,
Oh
not
no, right, of
defense,
course. But
personally.
yeah, point is that it's a very similar idea.
You just need to be what's the word? Like not deliberate, but like maybe deliberate is the right word. Just gotta be patient, okay? Take your time. Um, there's always another day for scores, and there's always a good reason to understand something rather than like going in blind or like doing something like changing a skin to rely on like chance that you get it.
Right, and actually, something that I should mention in regards to that, like copying things. There's a difference between doing what someone else does, and like while you know how it works, versus like blindly copying, um, versus like understanding the mechanics behind why
Oh
someone
yeah,
does a certain thing.
it's just like how everyone bought like White Cat's keyboard because they think it's like a like cheating material or something, right? It's like that.
Right. Um, I think like yeah, you have to like if you're gonna copy something, you should take some time to understand why that person does it the way that they do in the first place, right? So, because that
I
way
mean,
you'll be able to apply it to
yes.
yourself.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, like, don't like I don't know, like if it's not important, I wouldn't even copy it to begin with,
Right. No, no,
you
yeah.
know?
I mean, but that's the thing. Like, you can know um, whether or not, you should copy something or not by
Yeah, it's like
understanding how it works in the first place.
the fact that there are so many different play styles in the game just show that copying doesn't matter like at all. Or rather, like the difference that it does make, it's barely anything. Like it's nothing you can't make up with just like getting used to your own playstyle,
Right. I
right?
agree.
It's like changing grips or like changing areas or whatever. It's like the difference is so minuscule that it's not worth it.
Yeah. And one of the cool things that I think is really cool about OSIN, I mentioned this in Bubbleman's interview, but um,
Yeah.
there's like an infinite ways to go about like there's no wrong answer basically when it comes to
Yeah, there's no wrong
the
answer
way
to
you
anything.
play.
The concept of right and wrong is like religious dogma from like 2000 years ago, unironically.
um,
But
yeah,
yeah,
but
there's no right or wrong answer for anything. Like there's your way and that guy's way, and whichever works for you, you use.
right. Um,
Sorry, I
no, no, you're good. I mean, that was basically it. But
Yep.
yeah, I think overall, like things are a lot simpler than you might make it out to be sometimes. Also,
Oh
um,
yeah, definitely.
like
Uh
there's sometimes really there's no science behind like why Cookie Z holds his pen grip a certain way, or even like Cookie Z like curls his pinky right on his tapping hand. Um,
oh yeah.
the only reason he does that is because like I think like when he's tapping with ZX, like he doesn't want his ring finger to hit the Windows key or something like that. It's not for stamina. It's not
Oh,
for finger control. It's literally just because like
I don't
he's
know.
just
Like
trying to get his finger not to tap. I mean, I asked him, so it's definitely true.
oh
But
yeah, I mean, the thing is it's like I'll be honest, most top players don't know why they do stuff.
right,
Like most players, not even top players, like most players don't know why they do stuff.
right,
They just do stuff because it's what they started doing. Okay,
yeah,
and it's it's not that complicated. They're not omega brain. It's actually like the opposite,
yeah,
right?
and also like in that same regard, that there's a difference between being good at something and being able to teach it, basically, or being able to explain
Yeah.
what works.
Here's the thing, like I don't consider myself like good at teaching. Like I'll be honest, it's like that's why I said listening to other people isn't ideal because like even I can't explain everything to you. Like no one can, but like I don't consider myself like a good teacher, like a good guide to follow or anything like the the best teacher is like you getting hands-on experience and interpreting it in your own way rather than listening to someone else's interpretation of it, which he's an entirely different person from you, so there's no comparison to even make to begin
Right.
with, you know?
And
My take.
no, no, I agree. And another thing is that like top people sometimes aren't even able to explain what they do. Like they don't have the words for it, and they might explain it in a way that is not actually really accurate to what they do.
Oh yeah,
They
I think when you ask most people at a high level, how do you do it? And then they just say like, oh, I just do it, right? And I don't blame
right,
them because like no one knows anything. Like I don't know anything, right? So that's kind of the thing. Like it's not that complicated. I feel like I feel like people are delving into the specifics that don't matter rather
right.
than looking at the big picture,
I
which
think
is they got it through practice, not through using a certain like peripheral or whatever, you know.
yeah, I think really what it comes down to is that like people are kind of inherently lazy. Like they don't want to put in the work. That's why you
Oh yeah,
have those like um like exercise
that's why
programs
this
or like
program happens. I'm kidding. Okay, keep
true.
going.
Um,
True.
you get like get rich quick things. People
Mhm.
are very like intrigued by stuff like that because it's like you don't really want to put in the work. Like if there's a shortcut, then like you're obviously gonna take it, right? So um
Yep.
yeah,
You also can fall into a trap of like you think you're being productive by watching something that teaches you how to do something, but you're not actually
yeah,
doing it.
I agree.
So
This is probably the reason why kids improve so fast at this game. They just play and don't waste time asking questions.
Uh, I think
Well,
it's more than that. I think they have more motivation to prove themselves.
yeah,
You know
I
what I
think
mean? Like,
the another thing is that like I think kids are just less afraid of making mistakes.
oh yeah, 100%.
Um,
100%.
I think that that's the real
They
thing.
yeah, yeah. They're not afraid to look like idiots because they don't have any reputation to protect. And I feel like when you get older, you kind of become more self-aware of like how you look to other people.
Right. Like you
And
sort of
that's not something you can't work on.
right.
It just gets harder, I
Yeah.
feel like.
You kind of develop this fear of failure to some extent. Um,
Yeah.
that sort of holds you back from like pushing yourself and doing the things that worked for you as a kid to like because I think the thing is like people are like, oh, you're um you lose the ability to learn new skills when you're an adult.
Oh, that's bullshit. That
uh,
is
I
bullshit.
think the real reason is that like you stop trying basically.
It's a
Yeah.
cop out for people who give up. It's like, "Oh, I reached a certain age. I can't learn anything." It's like
Right.
it's a cop out. Like when you can learn something when you're 90 years old. Like that's bullshit.
Right. I think you just never put yourself in the same environment to learn something new. Because I guess I don't know. It's all about making mistakes. But if you're too afraid to make a mistake, which is not your fault. I mean, it's sort of it's
It's
very
human
natural,
nature.
right? But if you're able to overcome that, then yeah, that's really all there is to it. Because I
I
think
feel like if you're looking like an idiot, you're doing it right.
right,
Seriously.
right. If you're feeling uncomfortable, like you can't become comfortable at something new without being uncomfortable first, right?
Exactly.
Um, so like if you want to get better at something, like you're supposed to feel uncomfortable. Like this, I don't know what example
Like, did
to
you think
give.
I was good at Hard Rock when I started out? Like, no, I was getting like 80% on
Right.
like 5-star maps, but like everyone has to start from a certain way, you know?
And that I think that's another thing that I've sort of thought about. Like when you see a new top player, um you don't see like you only see their current skill level after like however long they've been practicing. You don't see like
It's not even that. Like you don't see the bad things either, you know?
right.
Like they might be good at one thing, but they're not good at other things, and you might be good at those other things too. Like it's not that one dimensional. And
Right.
really, I don't think humans, how do I say it without being like, hmm, I don't think it's fair to compare humans to anyone but yourself anyway, because
Right.
people approach stuff so differently. We're so fundamentally different from each other that it's not like it's any type of comparison you make isn't really fair. Not to yourself, not to others.
Right. I think like comparing one person to any other person is like apples to oranges effectively,
Yep.
because obviously you're both, you know, human beings, but um you're not the same, right? So
Yeah,
doesn't
it's like
count.
what it doesn't go it's not that straightforward, I feel like.
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, I don't know, I had a train of thought and then it died.
Go
Okay,
for it.
right.
It's reaching the next stop. I'm
um
hilarious.
I think in regards to like messing up um in order to like find success, I guess, or like failure being the precursor to success in some sense. um you can even relate that to mind block, to be honest. You mess
Yeah,
up a
I
pattern
think
and then
you
you
should get mind blocked because then you learn how to fix it. You know,
right,
like
like
I think I said that earlier. Like if you're getting mind blocked, you're doing it right because you know how to fix it, or like it gets you into a situation where you're forced to fix it.
right, it's definitely a part of the natural process of learning a map.
Yeah.
And the pitfall that people really get themselves into is that they think that it's something wrong or that something that's not supposed to happen. Um, to an
Yeah.
extent. I mean,
No, that's
obviously, it's preventing you from playing well, but you're not. The point is not to be able to play perfectly, um, like immediately, right? Um, if you really want to master a map inside and out, then it involves going through the mind block process and like really figuring out the map rather
yep.
than you just kind of play it until things start going wrong and then like you get scared basically rather than tackling those issues that you're having.
It's like no one like mind blocks don't go away once you reach like a certain like level of skill. I
Right.
feel like at least nowadays people know it, but I remember when I was starting out, I felt like, oh, mind blocks are probably not a thing when you're like that good at the game. And it's like, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
Like it happens to everyone, right?
Yeah.
But they're always fixable. They're always fixable. Like
Yeah.
without exception. Like stuff like Big Black, right? Like everyone's mind blocked on it, right? But you're able
Right.
to go through it step by step and like eventually relearn the map by just like adjusting everything you need to adjust.
Yeah. I think that that's kind of something that I want to, or that I'm glad that like these interviews can hopefully shed some light on, is that like just because you're like a super experienced player doesn't mean that you don't have these issues that everyone else experiences. Um, like this is less about, you know, people coming on and being like, yeah, you know, you can just get better and then it won't be a problem. Like in the nerve control interview, we or interviews, we saw that for sure. Like it's not like you just stop getting nervous once you reach a certain skill level. So
Oh
like
yeah, 100%.
everyone deals with this stuff. So yeah.
I feel like I actually get worse with nerves like the more I play, funnily enough.
Oh really?
But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
but
I get that. I get that.
my approach to it is I just expect to get nervous and I just deal with it. And if I miss, I just try again. Like I don't take it as a big deal.
Right. Which is, you know, obviously a mentality that you sort of have to practice as well, right? It's not
Yeah.
just yeah.
I don't fight it because fighting it just gets you less distracted with like what you're supposed to do. Right. I just like accept that I'm gonna get nervous and just learn to deal with it.
Right. Yeah, and I think those of you, hopefully, those of you who listened to the nerve control interviews that we did a couple of weeks ago, that should sound pretty familiar as well. Um,
Oh yeah, I don't know who said that. I haven't listened to those, but that makes sense.
right. Um, I think it's sort of a general trend, so to speak, of um, like so it's not just I don't know. It's not an uncommon way to deal with nerves. I guess I'll put it that way.
I remember you were like, yeah, I need to like do 40 mental gymnastics to like not get nervous in tournaments. And I'm just like, I can't do that.
By me?
Yeah, I remember you were doing
Oh,
something like that. Yeah. Like it
um,
works for you, hey. Like
right.
I don't think that there's a right or wrong in that regard,
Oh
but
no, yeah,
for me, I just like
yeah.
expect to get nervous and like deal with it.
I think the real I've sort of experimented with a lot of different mentalities for nerve control. But I think the real point with that is that there really are that many methods, and all of them could work for you, right? So
Oh
and
yeah,
that just sort of ties back to what we were saying. Like you have to try them for yourself. Is the big thing. So
there's no right or wrong. That's what you need to like, in my opinion, take in the most
right,
is that you can. There are so many like ways to approach something uh, that you shouldn't be afraid of trying something, or you shouldn't be afraid of something happening to you like mind blocks, because if anything, they teach you how to get past them. Because if you think like you're never gonna get like, remember how like Rohulk would play like one map every time, and like he would only play one map one try,
right,
and like that thought process was like, oh okay, if I only play a map once every time, like I'll never get mind blocked ever, right? And that's not true, because
yeah. That's
you can play a map once and still get mind blocked. It doesn't really work that way. But
yeah, and I think
uh not avoiding it isn't the issue. It's tackling it head on, in my opinion. That's the ideal thing to do. Sorry, I messed up my sentence, but
right. I think and even that like practicing that in Osu um can I don't know, this sort of applies to um like I don't know, learning mentality in that you can apply to other skills outside of Osu, but like getting used to like when you start experiencing mind blocks to like have that approach of that like it's something that you can fix and like work on with practice. Like you can sort of
yeah,
apply that same thing to I guess failure in a more broad sense. Um like if you um it's like you sort of mentioned the two paths that you can take when you get mind block is one like okay you deal with it and then you sort of treat it as a problem that's solvable, and then the other option is like you just kind of get scared by it and like stray away from it. um
yeah,
but practicing taking that first approach of tackling it and knowing that it's something you can overcome is very applicable to just learning any skill in general, like we were talking about like experiencing that period of failure before, or like
well,
when, or
I
just in
can give you an
discomfort.
example.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually,
sure.
I'm learning to storyboard right now, and that requires learning programming to a certain degree. And I have like PTSD from school
Oh God.
about programming, because I would fail everything, and like everyone would get something, and I was like the only person who didn't get it. So I have like PTSD looking at code right now, right? But over time, it gets less scary the more I do it. You know,
Right,
that's the same approach you need to do with mind blocks, or really with anything, right?
right. But in those situations is when you can sort of tell yourself like, oh, this is just like getting mind block in OCU. I know how to deal with this, and
Yeah.
it and again that's just sort of something you can try. If it works for you, then let's go. But yeah,
Go.
let's
Head
go.
moment. Sorry.
Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Um,
Yep.
Do you have any last tidbits that you want to shout out as we wrap up, I guess?
Hmm. Well, if there's anything that you felt like I didn't cover
Um,
about mind blocks,
I
I
think it's
can try to go over it like really quickly. Yeah.
I mean this won't be the last time that we see you. Are you going to be here on Friday actually?
Oh,
At
what time is it actually?
15, the same time as this one.
I should be. Yeah.
Okay.
You
So
will not get rid of me that easily.
um yeah, but I mean the you can always come in and do your own little talk about anything, I guess.
Sure.
Um
Okay.
I mean, there's this like system that we do called lecture halls, where it's basically just a little audio lesson thing. Um,
Hmm. I'm not. Okay, I might have to see it to like. I know. I saw Zootineator do something
Right. Yeah,
about that, but
I'll show you more about it
yeah.
after
Okay.
this
Yeah.
interview, but um yeah, I think for now, sounds like a good place to wrap things up. Um
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks again, everyone, for listening. I will mention if you guys are listening on YouTube or Spotify, um, the best thing you can do to get involved if you're not already there is to join our Discord server. That's where you can ask questions and get directly involved in other activities that we do here at OC University. But yeah, other than that, we appreciate you guys listening. If you guys want to support us, the best thing you can do is to share the content with anyone you think might appreciate it. But yeah, with that,
Smash that like button.
smash the
Hit the
like button.
bell.
um,
Hit that motherfucking bell. I'm sorry.
um,
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
yeah, thanks again, Silver, for joining. Thanks to all of you for listening. And we'll see you guys tomorrow for another Mindblock interview with
Yeah. Yeah. Wowie
Wowie.
showing up, right?
Yeah, Wowie. Um,
Hell yeah. I'm
but
sorry about yesterday. I should have been yesterday, but Bubble
oh,
came in clutch to
no,
take my
no.
place.
Yeah, it's all good.
Hey.
But yeah, thanks for listening and see you guys next time.
Yeah. Have a nice day, all.